This is DrClyde, and we're now on our first step towards improving your nutrition, first looking at what can go wrong with just a calorie balance model. So in this paper of hundreds that are published on the topic, the authors discuss how restricting calories can actually shut the body down. So I'm just going to highlight a few words here in these red underlined parts, that there's a dynamic energy balance in the body, and the body can reduce its metabolic rate when we're eating less. This is why obesity is so resistant to control. When food intake is reduced for weight control, all components of energy expenditure change, including how many calories you're burning at rest, during exercise, and your body adapts to conserve calories when it's getting less. This means that our body responds to how much we're eating in a dynamic way. And reducing calories will reduce how many calories your body uses, and vice versa, increasing would increase how many calories our body is using. So it's important to emphasize that these effects, how your body adapts to, for example, a caloric restriction, can lead to several year response in the body to having a lower metabolic rate. And so the energy gap between what your body needs and what it's supplied, when it's beyond a certain amount, will start to shut your body down. That's roughly a quarter of your daily needs. That gives us a limit to how much we can restrict calories for healthy weight loss or increase in calories for healthy weight gain. One of the most profound papers on this subject was this one, the 6-year follow-up to the Biggest Loser contestants, a television show where people competed exercising very hard and strict dieting to lose weight. You can see that on average, for the subjects in this particular season, when they were observed 6 years later, they had a suppressed metabolic rate on average 500 calories and as much as 800 calories in the worst case. And the more that the weight loss had been maintained, the worse the suppressed metabolism was. So the body is fighting to go back to its original body fat level. So the only subjects who had their metabolic rate return to normal were those who returned to their original level of body fat before having started on the show. So what in the body can shut down by 1,000 calories a day or close to it, as shown in this 6-year follow-up? On my work with Roger Cook and Narman Naber at UCSF, University of California, San Francisco, we published recently the mechanism whereby the body can shut down by 1,000 calories a day without losing any function or even health status or organ system function, and how your body acts and reacts through the day. And that is that your muscle has two different versions of being relaxed. One where it's completely shut down, you're like your car in the driveway, key out of the ignition. Another where it's idling, like when you're at a stop sign or a red light, where it's burning calories even though it's relaxed. Muscle is the same. So when you eat more, there's more idling to burn more calories. When you eat less, then there would be a shutdown into that. We looked at skeletal muscle from lean and obese subjects, and the percentage of muscle that was in the super relaxed state was similar, which then argues that at least for the small number of subjects, there is no fundamental genetic difference between them, except for potentially subsequent changes to the DNA because of lifestyle patterns. So this basically tells us that when you're pushing calorie balance really hard, so you're moving a lot and you're not eating much, that the body will fight back against that and has an amazing mechanism, the super relaxed state, for shutting down to fight against weight loss, because it's perceiving that as a starvation experience and wants to survive it, and can shut down by as much as 1,000 calories, which is profound. So this doesn't make calorie balance wrong, it's correct. But if you're pushing it to its limits, the body has ways of getting around it that makes it wrong in terms of you're not achieving your goals. So how do we address this? Eating things that digest slow enough. This bucket is the digestive pitcher is the digestive system, so that nutrients come into the bloodstream. Our metaphor here is the bucket that the pitcher is pouring into, so that our lean tissue has time to absorb and use those nutrients. Processed foods, of course, overflow that bucket. And yes, you can burn them later, but if you're chronically doing that, then you'll have an accumulation over time of body fat that exceeds what you're able to burn. So eating what you like in a way that is where you look under the hood, see what is it that you're supplying your body, is there anything missing, and making micro adjustments to what you're eating to make sure that you're supplying everything will then facilitate your body to be having a higher metabolism so that you can better achieve your goals, whether that involves weight gain, loss, or maintenance. So you want to take who you are with you to your goals, meaning eating the foods you like at the times you like. But then if there are gaps that are holding you back from your goals, then filling those gaps and seeing how your body responds. So we're going to frame the research within who you are. So what do we need? The National Institute of Medicine tells us, it gives us directives, guidance on how to eat. And when you crunch some numbers back of the envelope, the percentage of a typical person's calories that need to be protein, vegetables, carbohydrate, and fats works out to be between 4 and 10% for a total of around 1/3 of your calories. So this color-coded block here represents the 4 different food groups. And if you're interested in ketosis, then dietary carbohydrate, the red component, would disappear. But these larger blocks on top here, that's the fuel component that can be anything you want it to be. With keto, it would be fats. Otherwise, it could just be mixed like a Mediterranean-style diet. That can be any food source that digests slow enough to be used as fuel in the short term, as opposed to overflowing your bucket into adipose chronically, where you have a slow increasing fat accumulation. And even if you're under eating, if there's overflow, let's say you don't eat half the time, but when you do, it's processed food, then you can accumulate lipids in your vital organs like liver, kidneys, bloodstream, arteries, even if you're very thin on the outside. So fat on the inside, thin on the outside can be the result of fast digesting processed calories, regardless of how much you're eating. So the point here is that most of what you're eating, well over half of what you're eating, can be anything that you want it to be, so long as it digests slow enough for your body to be able to use it in the short term. So Christopher Gardner's study at Stanford a few years back showed that with over 600 adults over the course of 1 year, they eating healthy foods that whether it was high carbohydrate or a high fat diet, everyone lost 10 pounds over the course of the year, regardless of the diet type, their insulin sensitivity, or their genetics. And I have a handout that's available online. That's where I compare the lowest amount of the food groups that's recommended by the National Institute of Medicine, and comparing that to the percentages of those food groups in various diets. So this is a ladder comparison where keto is the highest in fats. And as you go down this ladder, the carbohydrate content in these diets goes up. Of course, the focus would be on the quality of these foods, not just the amounts. And so our strategy here is to first look at calorie flow to make sure that your body is getting enough of the food groups in general, other than just fats from your adipose, because the body needs more than just fats. And then specifically at the macronutrients to fill that minimum amount of water, protein, and carbohydrate so that the brain doesn't trigger a breakdown in lean tissue. And then third, to look at nourishment, which is the quality of foods, which is particularly most important for vegetables, and fats, unsaturated fats. So the antioxidants in vegetables and the unsaturation in fats both come from the same molecular structure which is the double electron bond. I put in red dashed lines here the second electron in one of these molecules, either vegetables or unsaturated fats. Oxygen loves that, will degrade that, and that is why the quality of vegetables and unsaturated fats falls away faster than the other food groups.